From The Times and The Sunday Times, I'm Luke Jones. This is The Story. As autumn gets fully into swing and we prepare for the big freeze, why not make your hibernation that little bit more difficult by making some kind of a change? October, like January, is increasingly a dry month for some. Stoptober is a popular charity challenge, giving it all up to support any number of causes, some supporting those who seriously struggle with booze. Remember, it's 10,000 of us who are killed each year in the UK by it. Hannah Betts, like a fifth of the country, doesn't drink, at least anymore. In The Times last week, she wrote about her 10 years of sobriety, why she gave up drink, and how her father didn't, in quite a distressing fashion. The story today: me, my father, and the demon drink.
My name is Hannah Betts, and I've been writing for The Times since, 1924, 1998, October, so that's 26 years ago now.
Gosh.
On lots and lots and lots of different things. I was a leader writer, I edited op-ed, too much of me. And now I'm a freelance contributor.
Is the word celebrate for anniversaries of sobriety? I mean, what's the word for it?
Oh, endure. I don't know. They're very odd sober birthdays. I mean, partly because part of you still thinks you should celebrate with a drink, because that's what you always did. It's what everyone does. We have a very alcophiliac society. We need a drink for everything. We celebrate with it. We commiserate with it. We do it when we're bored. We do it when we're having fun. We do it to sleep and to have sex and, so that we don't feel things and to feel things. It's everything for us.
Yeah. And you've been sober for 10 years, is that right?
Isn't it mad? I mean, I am the most shocked, really. This was not something I ever expected. Drinking was my only hobby and my sole journalistic skill other than swearing. So no one could be more surprised, Luke.
Well, how much of a hobby? Hannah the drinker was what?
I'm trying not to swear now. Well, she was around for a long time. She was the Hannah, 30 years, from about 14 to 43. It's funny, I always think of the phrase the roaring girl from the Jacobean play about a wild, transgressive, cross-dressing woman swaggering around. And part of me still misses that roaring girl because she was amazing. She was always having scrapes. She was fearless. She was fun for one night only, perhaps. Scary. I loved terrifying people, less so myself. But, I was always dancing on tables or skating on thin ice or leaping into pools fully clothed. Not at the office,
yes,
but, once out of hours. But as I say, that's fun for a night, but it's kind of intolerable to live like that.
Yes. And was the allure of drinking at the time what it did to you, or, I don't know, the kind of world that it got you into?
Oh, I loved it all. I mean, I don't know if you've read the book by Caroline Knapp called Drinking a Love Story. She sort of brought the love metaphor into drinking, particularly for women. I loved everything about it. I loved the accessories, the accoutrement. Even a couple of weeks ago, I almost bought a vintage cocktail shaker because it was so beautiful, so elegant, this piece of Art Deco magic. And it took me ages to get rid of my drinking cabinet trolley thing.
Yeah.
It was a work of art, and I still look at that and, no, I did get rid of it.
Yes. You think, what are you going to put on it? Just tea bags or something?
No, I got rid of it. I gave it to somebody. I loved the venues and the clink of ice, Even the language used to describe it all those Anglo-Saxon sort of verbs and smashed, loaded, wrecked, slaughtered, hammered, wasted, trashed. To me, it felt heroic, and normal life felt boring. And you look very sceptical. I'm getting a bit of millennial judgment.
No, hardly.
Come on, I'm Gen X.
But I'm wondering, the way you're describing it now, I can't tell whether you're looking back on that time, loving it, or thinking it's slightly tragic.
I'm not judging other people's drinking at all. I wish I could drink normally. But I think it would be tragic if I was still doing it. I think it stops being fun. I was saying to someone, it's all great fun until somebody loses an eye. But what I meant was the, eye.
Yes.
And I think I got lost in that.
When did you realise you got lost in that?
Well, I did a sort of trial run of sobriety. Everyone has a rock bottom, and some diehard drinkers would say mine was pathetic and middle class and, not bottom enough, not rock enough. But anyway, it was...
Would you mind me asking what that was?
So it was a party. Everyone was drinking. I fell asleep in a bath, propositioned a gay vicar, took his card, cut my nipple. I mean, you probably want to edit some of this out. Anyway, whenever I tell that story, everyone goes, oh, but that's just a normal party-type chaos. It was a christening. Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, yes, it was a christening.
Was the vicar doing the christening?
Yes, Luke.
Well done.
Yeah. Anyway, and the people who held the christening will always say, but everyone was that drunk. And they all fell asleep in the hallway. But I'd had a very heartbroken summer drinking too much. I looked like late stage Vegas Elvis. I felt terrible. And that was my last drink, so... And
at that time, were you thinking, I need to stop because I am, quote, an alcoholic? Or were you just thinking, this is just a bit troublesome and I could do without it, please?
I think I knew it was the end of the road. But the beautiful thing about being a journalist is you can tell everybody it's for a story. So I didn't have to think about it, and neither did they. And people still rolled their eyes and said, you'll never do it. And I thought, curse word, I'm going to do it for 3 months. I'm going to suck it and see. And 100 days was Christmas Day. So I stopped mid-September. And a lot of people said, celebrate with a glass of fizz.
Yeah.
But I've got friends who will be happy with a glass. Even this translates as to, I would not have been happy with a glass, Luke. I wanted a bottle of champagne and then a bottle of red, and I might not have stopped then. And so that means I can't have any. And the logic of that, I've not got past. I'm an all or nothing person. I find moderation tedious in the extreme. So for me, it's got to be none.
And you did that immediately? It was cold turkey. It wasn't, I'll slowly build up to this. It was one day you were...
I even gave up coffee.
Oh.
And it wasn't pretty. My eyelashes fell out. I had terrible nightmares. I mean, I have bad nightmares anyway. They were so awful I'd wake up crying. I mean, full madness. But then after 14 days, you sleep beautifully. That's the great reward of sobriety. The sleep is like a fairy tale or a cult. It's incredible. And it just became clear to me that this had to be for life.
What about the waking hours?
Well, yeah, not easy. People take up hobbies. A lot of people, I don't know how they do it. A lot of Americans eat a lot of ice cream and get fat. I would have found that impossible because obviously I was having a lot of sugar and alcohol. I lost 1.5 stone in the first 7 weeks.
Oh,
I know.
Wow.
So I actually had to eat a lot just to get normal again. Oh, your face, your innocent little face.
No, I'm just thinking that's again sounds like a positive for me.
Well,
I'd think, great, I'd love to lose 1.5 stone.
A lot of my friends didn't think I had a problem at all because it's become middle class normal to have half a bottle of wine a night. In that period before I gave up, I was having a bit more than that. People always think you're drinking vodka in the morning, crawling on your face. I was entirely functional. I wasn't notorious at the Times for drinking. I didn't drink in the day. But you can still have a problem with it.
And so those 3 months were good, and then you decided to continue?
Luke, they were hard.
Oh.
I wouldn't say good. Living hell? How's living hell
But then
for
how did you settle on a point where you thought, well, I'm going to extend this 3 months?
It was so obvious it was the right thing. It was so obvious. Just the quality of life, the sanity, the not self-medicating, and then other reasons that we'll also get into.
Yes, and I guess the first thing that happens in that period is the death of your mother, well, the diagnosis of your mother with cancer.
Yeah, she was diagnosed when I was 98 days sober. And obviously my first thought was drink, but I didn't. And she was very ill immediately. I remember someone at the time saying, but she seems to be dying every 4 days. And she was. It was an incredibly dramatic 6 months in which there was a lot going on. She desperately didn't want to die. But the one thing I remain most grateful for is not using drink as an escape, not putting my own solace ahead of being present for them, and not absenting myself in addiction. I remember there was one night when, quite early on, when she thought she was dying, and I got a call from the hospital, and I was the only one sober enough to go in and sit with her. And again, no judgment. I would love to have been asleep, having had a bottle of wine. But the fact that I wasn't was everything that night. And it was really hard not to have your usual defense mechanisms, but it was everything. Also, at that point, my father, whom I was very close to and who I adored, he was a very eminent doctor. His obituary was in the Times when he finally died. A world leader in brain medicine, very brilliant, very dashing. People always say, oh, did you hero worship him? But he was objectively heroic.
Yeah. His Majesty's Times concurred. Yeah.
I mean, he just was. And the lovely science editor here, who I was friends with, we'd always talk about him and things. And he was also my person, as you might put it. I did a Substat recently on being a girl dad, that phrase that we all use now. And he was definitely that before the phrase. And I was a dad-daughter. I love my partner, my friends, my family, my dog. But without him, I still don't really know who I am or what my function is. And I still fantasize about using black magic to get him back, more than I'd really care to admit.
And was that kinship partly down to, I mean, was he a bon viveur as well? To use a delicate
Luke,
phrase.
What a lovely phrase. Yeah, I can think of other phrases to describe his drinking. He was. I mean, I remember when we were little, there was one time when he told us we'd broken his ribs through playing around as children on the bed. Actually, he'd fallen out of a window.
Oh.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I too have fallen out of windows. I get it. It's a problem. Windows, man. They're a problem.
But I can imagine that being, I mean, windows aside, a sort of nice bonding thing.
Yes.
In that you would sort of crack open bottles together.
He was my favourite drinking buddy. When I was at Oxford, he'd come to Oxford and we'd drink. He would come to London all the time and we'd drink. I miss that. Yeah, he was my drinking partner.
And did he have any sense that it was problematic at any point? Or was he, in the moment, loving it as you were?
He was a doctor, Luke. Of course it wasn't problematic. Yeah. Doctors never have issues with alcohol.
Yes.
Or addiction of any sort.
Yes.
No, and he always said when he was finished being a doctor, he would drink himself to death and that it would be a good way to go. And a lot of my friends still tell me it's a good way to go. And a large part of writing this rather ghastly article is to prove to people that it is anything but a good way to go.
Hannah, we've been talking booze and the lack of it. Certainly for you at the moment, 10 years of sobriety, you've been explaining your decisions there.
Drinks all round.
You were just talking about your father and how he was a great companion, drinking and otherwise, to you, but how he'd said that at some point, you know, when he gave up work, he would end up drinking himself to death. When you were no longer drinking, and then you could, I guess, look at what he was doing with fresh eyes, how did you see him?
Still, people tell me I'm a killjoy and I should have allowed him that great pleasure of drinking himself to death. And that has been a huge motivation in finally writing about it. What drinking yourself to death means is a career-ending stroke at 63, at the height of your brilliance, after other strokes that you ignored. It means the slow obscuring of your planet-sized brain in alcoholic dementia, which is no fun. It means putting your addiction above your vocation, above those you love, and really all human dignity. It means falling on your mighty brain a lot and losing control of your bladder and bowels and losing the sympathy and, in some cases, love of those around you.
Because to be frank, when he said that was his aim, I mean, he didn't say it with a twinkle in his eye, I imagine. I mean, that was a real pursuit.
He did initially. I mean, I think like all of us drinkers and like us Betses, he thought it was fun, good, heroic. But yeah, the twinkle goes. And then it became the phrase, let me go to hell in my own way.
He said that?
Yeah, more than once. And particularly one time I remember we tried to sort of, as Americans would say, stage an intervention. And I get it. I mean, at the point at which we did it, the three people who staged the intervention were also drinking a lot, but we were younger and less further down the road to addiction. And obviously once I stopped drinking, that kind of gave me no leg to stand on at all. I think he was bemused by that. I don't know if he even really took it in. He probably thought it was a fad. I don't know. I don't think he was fully functioning at that point anyway.
What was he like once your mother died?
Delusional? Oh, I should tell everyone that Lucas sweetly just put his hand out. This is not what you signed up for today, is it? Yeah, kind of delusional. Delusional, yeah. I mean, not what you'd want. I remember him coming home from her funeral and actually I put him to bed with a glass of whiskey because much as I adored him, he was kind of intolerable. But, I also cut his toenails because it turned out no one had done that. And it's intimate and horrible and infantilizing and everything awful. It's not fun.
And was that because he was just drinking so much during the day that he was drunk all the time? Or was this the sort of health impacts of living that kind of life?
Well, I think you're either drunk or you're recovering, and that becomes a bit clouded. Also, the alcoholic dementia, it was noticeable. He sort of vanished. The man we knew went, and a different personality is at play. And this became very obvious in the last few weeks of his life because he physically couldn't drink anymore. And for me, intellectually, he came back. So it was incredibly moving. It was incredibly powerful having this genius back again. And that was him without alcohol because his body physically couldn't do it anymore.
But by that point, he was
dying.
Too ill for
rapidly dying. Yeah.
How did that, and again, if you don't mind me asking, how did that present itself?
Oh, well, a new sort of horror developed for all of us. And I get it, actually. I do get it as someone who doesn't drink. He wasn't able to fill himself with warmth and comfort from the inside anymore. So he immersed himself in warmth and comfort from the outside. And he'd always taken baths, but he started taking 12, 24, 48, even 72-hour baths.
72-hour baths?
Yeah,
Gosh.
and again, that might sound fine. It's not when someone is very ill, decrepit, stubborn, It was very painful for my brother, who was his carer, and my sisters, who were nearer. My other brother and I would be sort of saying down the phone, look, we'll have to get social services. This is not us caring for you if we let you be in a bath for 3 days, surrounded by whatever you're surrounded by, cold. It wasn't tenable. So I know it sounds a bit comic, but it was horrendous. He was as dogged as ever. And then, actually, the last time I saw him was on a Saturday, and we were reading the Times. You know, in that British way of pretending to read the newspaper. Sitting on a sanitary pad, because that's where alcohol gets you ultimately, the glamour. Looking at the paper, as we always did. And I remember asking him if he was scared to die, and he said no, he wasn't. I left on the Sunday, and on the Monday, he was having another long bath. My valiant brother left him alone just for a few minutes. I mean, you can't look after someone during a 3-day bath. I think he went to get him some food. He came back, and my father was dead, dramatically dead. Our Victorian hot water system had been aggressively overheating, and my father had turned on the hot tap, but lacked the strength to twist it off, and he got 3rd-degree burns and then had a heart attack. And they attempted to resuscitate him, as you might in the panic, and it wasn't possible, obviously.
I'm so sorry, that's awful.
No, I mean, it is awful. It was awful. We had an inquest. The coroner took great pains to tell us that my father had still been alive when he had those burns, which, of course, we'd all hoped that the heart attack might have preceded, but apparently you can tell and it hadn't. One of my father's patients kind of gate crashed the inquest and kept shouting, "He was a wonderful man," which is what every psychiatrist wants and can relate to. My brothers and sisters are wonderful. I don't know, Luke, how they're going to feel about me talking about this.
How do you feel talking about it?
Oh, I didn't sleep last night. It's funny, I think some of my friends who aren't journalists, they think we love the attention of writing about our private lives. I never have, actually. But I do feel like I've betrayed the person I love most, which a lot of people in Al-Anon, which is the family of alcoholics group, will relate to, because you feel like you have to keep these secrets. But I've violated my father's privacy, because privacy is what keeps us drunk. And my father was desperate to leave his body for medical science. It was far too destroyed to do that. But if I share this story, his example will have some use, I think. And already Times readers have said that. I haven't looked myself because it can be a bit terrifying going below the line, as you know. And on this, I'm way too terrified. But my editor has had a look, and she said people are already saying that it will be life-saving. And honestly, Luke, that's all I want.
And of course, none of us know what happens to us when we die.
Oh, I do. I'm a dogmatic atheist.
Okay. Imagine there's another place, and imagine your father's there, and
Will it be a bar?
Imagine
well, funny enough, I put coins on his chest for Karen. He always wanted to go to Hades. So we put coins for the boatman. That's where he's going to be.
Imagine
by choice, with, Plato and Socrates and other people.
Should they have a time subscription? Or a podcast
God,
facility?
is he going to send a thunderbolt?
How would he feel about this?
Oh, God, I don't know. I mean, a couple of nice friends have said that he would be proud because they know how deeply ambivalent I feel about it. His whole life was about making people well. That's all he cared about, truly. And he was very proud of me being at the Times, always. And he was a devoted Times reader. I hope he'd get it. I really hope so. because it is only well meant. And I do think we have a horrendous problem culturally with alcohol. The fact that people still tell me that I didn't have a problem is testament to that. Before, I've compared sobriety to T.S. Eliot's poem Journey of the Magi, which I've always, even though I'm an atheist, I've always found it very beautiful, which talks about a cold coming and a desert slog and a birth that's a death and an old life that you're no longer at one with. And that always, it ends with, I should be glad of another death. I don't mean my father's death here, obviously, but I mean the renunciation for me, the giving up. It's really hard. I still would love a drink. I'd love to suggest we went and got one now. For me, it's an uncelebratory state, hence the weirdness of the sober birthday. But it's still the most fundamental thing. And, you know, if that's as good as it gets, then that is good enough.
So you're celebrating, or whatever we agreed the word was, 10 years.
Yeah.
You celebrate with what as a sober person?
Yes. Well,
interesting teas. They're doing interesting thing with vinegars now, aren't they?
If you say interesting teas again, I may punch you.
Yeah.
But I do drink a lot of decaffeinated tea at night, because having a cup of tea at night we rely on what we can. Yeah. I drink a lot of sober beer, but sober beer is very, very good. There is a sober bar in Covent Garden, and I think I will either take some friends out for dinner. Well, they can drink, but, you know, and we might start off there. I'm not evangelical. I like it when other people drink.
Well, it's a date. I'll see you there.
Yeah, come.
That was Hannah Betts, who writes for The Times, and you can read her piece that she wrote about all of this at thetimes.com if you've got a subscription, and you can find a lot more of her work on her Substack as well. Search online for that. If you or maybe someone you know has a problem with drinking and would like some help, we have put links to some organisations who might be able to help in the episode show notes. Hopefully you found this an interesting listen, and if you did, why not forward it along to a friend, family member who you think might also appreciate it? Send them a link. The producer today was Edward Drummond, the executive producer is Kate Ford, and sound design and theme composition was by Mauro Seto. I'm Luke Jones, and I'll see you soon.